I loved this movie. Being a massive Shrek fan, of course I was gonna like this movie. Of course, originally, I didn't think a lot of people liked this movie. And why is that? Because there was never a sequel. But then, as I find out over the years, it turns out there was a big following for the Puss in Boots movie. And especially how there is a sequel now to the Puss in Boots movie that just came out not too long ago, which, of course, I'm going to go see immediately after this review, if I can get this out before I go. So I figured I would discuss the first one, the classic one, the one that started the whole Shrek spinoff thing. Now, there was a Netflix series that came out, I think it was back in 2015, 16, maybe even 17, but I don't know how people felt about that, even though it lasted for 4 seasons. Anyway, let's get into the movie that starred the Shrek spinoffs, Puss in Boots. So the movie opens up with Puss in Boots doing a narration of his whole life and nicknames he was given. One of them is Chupacabra, which is actually quite funny. Then we transition to a flashback or something like that, where he was visiting the house cat of the house, but on the way of him leaving, he steals the owner's ring and barely escapes with his life. And then he gets away and says he's a very bad kitty. Then we transition to this big parade because of some sort of celebration I can't exactly remember. Then we see Puss in Boots on the roof. Then we transition to a bar. And, of course, everyone is making fun of Puss in Boots. There are even some jokes that are actually kind of funny. And then the people realize that is Puss in Boots, and they try turning him in, but fail. And then after that, we find out about the MacGuffin of the movie, the magic beans. Originally, Puss in Boots was like, don't mention those, don't tell me they're real, I've been searching for them my whole life. And they show him tattoos of the beans and the beanstalk and all the story. There's even an appropriate joke, which I'm not going to get into details because when I got older, I'm like, oh dear. That's wrong, but funny. But you can only understand that if you have a grown mindset. After that, Puss in Boots decides to find the magic beans himself and finds out that they are in the hands of the criminals in the universe, Jack and Jill. Now, this is interesting seeing Jack and Jill as villains. Then we get to see the villains themselves, Jack and Jill, where they are in a hotel looking for a room. And the guy's like, we don't have enough room. They just shoot a guy. And they're like, there's room now. And then Jill makes a comment about there better be baby muffins. And then after they go in, the guy's like, but we don't have baby muffins. And then behind the screen, I'm like, well, nice knowing you. So then we transition to Jack and Jill. They were talking about things. One of them was about how Jack wants a baby. And as Jack and Jill are having this conversation, Puss in Boots uses his masterful techniques to cut a window shape of himself in the window. And then we get to meet this new mysterious cat, which, of course, if you've seen the movie, you know who it is. Then they have a argument, the two cats, Puss in Boots and the new mystery cat, about who gets the magic beans, which they get into a whole fight, and then Jack and Jill notices them, and they escape. Now, a detail I didn't notice as a kid, as they shot the gun, is they puffed up, which was actually a nice detail. I never knew cats did that until I actually got cats of my own. So that was actually a nice detail from back then. So they escape and they like fight it out. Then they go to like this cat bar where like the beverages are milk. I find that hilarious as a cat person. And once they get into the cat bar, they have a dance fight. Puss in Boots finds out that Tuesdays are a dance fight. It makes me curious what the other days are. Like, is it, never mind. Is there an actual fighting day or something? Or Taco Tuesday? Well, granted, a big portion of stuff, tacos, they can't have except for, like, meat. Okay, let's continue on. So, of course, they have a dance fight, and the dance fight ends with the new cat getting hit by a guitar. Then we find out that the new cat is a woman. There's even a joke. You're a woman? You can't make jokes like that anymore, unfortunately. And as Puss in Boots is trying to apologize to her after she left from getting hit by a guitar, he smells a very breakfasty smell, and we get to meet an old friend of Puss in Boots, Humpty Dumpty, which, of course, Puss in Boots is completely against working for, and finds out that Kitty Softpaws is working for Humpty Dumpty, and we also find out her name is Kitty Softpaws. And they both try convincing Puss to help them find the magic beans so they can go up the beanstalk. But Puss in Boots refuses a bunch of times. Kitty Softpaws tries to reason with Puss, or manipulate him to go, I should say, really. But it is not easy. Then we find out the tragic backstory to Puss in Boots. We find out he's an orphan, and on the first day, he was being attacked by bullies because Puss in Boots was in blue something spot, and Humpty Dumpty defended him. And there's this really dumb joke I really like for some reason. I laugh every single time. It's like the blue guy says, "Who asked you breakfast?" I know, it's a stupid joke, but I just can't stop laughing. Anyway, they decide to spin Humpty Dumpty around, and then Puss in Boots kicks their butt. And then we transition to later, and Puss in Boots finds out he's been looking for magic beans. They decide to work together. Eventually, when they got older, they're still doing that, but they get caught by, like, the marshal or something like that. I forget the actual term. And the orphanage mom is very disappointed. Humpty Dumpty is throwing rocks to make him feel better, while Puss in Boots is trying to figure out something. And because of Humpty Dumpty's stupidity, a bull comes out and almost kills the marshal's mom until Puss in Boots does something, which then he's rewarded hero, and they grow separate from each other, Humpty Dumpty and Puss in Boots. Well, Puss in Boots is still doing the right thing. Humpty Dumpty is doing the wrong thing and still looking for the beans, stealing and all that. And Puss in Boots, after bailing him out at one point, tells them that this is our home and we need to defend it, and we're brothers and all that. And the next night, or the same night, I don't know, he tricks Puss in Boots to steal from the bank, which Puss in Boots didn't know, and they were caught. Puss in Boots was framed and all that. They try escaping the village. Puss in Boots escapes. Humpty Dumpty doesn't. And that's the tragic backstory. And then Humpty says he wants to repair their friendship. And Puss in Boots agrees, but just for the prize. Then we transition to a heist to steal the magic beans from Jack and Jill. And, of course, Kitty Softpaws tries opening the lock with a knife after they enter the vehicle they're driving in, which is pretty cool, by the way. I actually like this vehicle, but you'll see why when I get into further details. Then she tries opening with a knife, as I said, but Puss in Boots helps her, and then they get the magic beans. But they actually stepped on one of the hogs. The door that they entered closed up, and the seats turned around, and it was like this dark red color that I really liked. It's just a cool vehicle. I like how it goes up and then down. It's so cool. Anyway, they eventually escape. They trap them in their own vehicle. There's even a joke at some point where they're like, let's see if the tale about cats landing on their feet is true. And Puss in Boots like, that's a lie. That's a rumor spread by dogs. Well, that's not exactly what he said, but it was pretty close. Then they escape. Humpty saves them. And the wagon that he was driving turns into a flying machine, which is pretty impressive. Then they go out in the middle of the forest, or the desert, I should say, really. And they plant the magic beans. And there's even this little joke where the beans just like, beep! Like just a tiny little thing. And then they're like, maybe you should say something nice to it to make it grow. And then Humpty Dumpty's like, hi, little plant. And then just a giant plant. I remember laughing at that as a kid, and it's still funny to this day. So they go up. They try looking for the golden eggs, which Humpty Dumpty dressed himself as one of the golden eggs. Then we find out the giant was slaughtered back in history, and there's some beast that's guarding the place that isn't the giant from the magic goose. They actually break a bottle, and the creature discovers that they're there. They have to go quickly. They use the champagne bottle to get to the other side. They find the golden goose. They book it with the golden goose. And, of course, they celebrate back down in the surface. And, of course, Kitty Softpaws and Puss in Boots are having a bit too much fun, where Humpty Dumpty is trying to keep the mission on track. And then the next morning, we find out that Humpty Dumpty is the bad guy because Jack and Jill knock out Puss in Boots, and he's trying to save Humpty Dumpty and Kitty Softpaws, but it turns out he's the bad guy, and Humpty Dumpty wanted revenge and wanted to lock him in jail and all that, which he does. And Puss in Boots even finds out Kitty Softpaws is a part of it. And, of course, he goes to jail. Later, Kitty Softpaws saves him. Humpty Dumpty's plan is to have the guardian of the golden goose destroy the village that they had to live in, which then Puss in Boots stops him. They agree that they need to give the golden goose back to the mom. They try that, and in the result, Humpty Dumpty sacrifices himself, and we find out he is actually a golden egg. And the Humpty Dumpty, who is the golden egg, and the golden goose and the golden goose's mom fly off somewhere far. Then Puss in Boots is redeemed a hero in his village. Then he rides off, and that's the end of the movie. Still a classic. I remember watching this twice for research because I felt for the occasion I would want to see the first Puss in Boots movie again to see if I still liked it, which I still do. And if I had to rate this movie, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. Now, we just have to see how the sequel is. I really can't wait for the sequel. I'm going to go see it very soon. So I hope you guys enjoy, and hopefully I'll give you guys a review of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish later today or tomorrow. See you guys.